1 year ago, I didn't think I'd be here. I've spent the better part of these last 20 years traveling and building ministries that reach around the globe. Last year, during one of the hardest seasons of my entire life, I was given the choice to quit altogether, delete my social media profiles, and just disappear. Or, alternatively, to take the harder path and keep pursuing what we as a family knew God had put before us. This is why you need the church around you. Because when I had no strength to keep going, those standing closest to my family pushed us to get back in the game and didn't let us quit. They pushed us to do hard things. I want to tell you about what this year held and why my family goes into the nations. I want to tell you a few of the short stories that ripped my heart out this year as I traveled the world. You need to know about a few critical moments that showed me God's heart for the nations. This year began for me in Italy, where I went to meet up with my friends Jordan and Jenny.
Well, good morning from beautiful Rome in Italy.
Jordan and Jenny lead the ministry in Kosovo. New Warm Brew is what it's called. You can watch some videos that I've done about that. But I went there with them because they'd invited me. They said, just come be with us. Just be here. We've got people, we've got missionaries that need care. We've got people who don't know Jesus that need to hear the gospel. And so I went with them. And it was incredibly valuable and rejuvenating to be on the field with friends of mine.
I'm going to pause right here and invite you to click the link in the description below. That's how you can support my family as we continue to go into the nations, to care for people and tell you stories just like this.
Later in the year, I went with my friend Craig, and we went to Ukraine. Craig and a few other guys, we went to Ukraine and we traveled throughout the whole region. There was this one particular moment. I remember being in the northeast part of Ukraine, really close to the Russian border. Air raid sirens were going off and we were doing church with the local church. We went to explore the town with some of the teenagers from the youth group. We'd done like a youth service that morning. We were going out to explore and get some coffees. And there was one particular moment. You see, I have a 3-year-old daughter. Her name's May. She turns 4 in January of this year, but she'll be a teenager 10 years from now. And as I'm standing there in this coffee shop with all of these teenagers, there was this one little girl, teenager girl, she's probably 14 or so, and she struck me as just this picture of my daughter in the future. Here I am in a war zone, air raid sirens going, and Melania is ordering a little latte.
Latte, syrup, vanilla caramel.
Vanilla caramel.
I just thought, what if this was my daughter? Who would bring food and supplies and care and show up for my family in a moment of crisis like this? I'll never forget that moment. It's seared into my brain, looking at Melania and looking at all these teenagers and going, wow, if this was my family, I hope the church would show up. Later on in the year, I got to go back to the Dominican Republic. My friend Johan and Marisol, they're planting a church in the middle of this neighborhood where people are just in desperate need. There were so many moments standing in the Dominican Republic with Johan and with my friend Jack, who's been a friend of mine since I was like 8 years old. We're standing there and we're exploring the city, and he's showing us things and he's just taking us to see people. And I watched Johan live out what he proclaims to live out every minute of the day. Because when we saw people in need, he would walk right up to them and start a conversation, and using that need, he would open a door to share the gospel. I watched him pour hours and hours and hours of his life into young teenage thugs in the Dominican who probably will just end up in street gangs if somebody doesn't come alongside and father them and teach them how to be a man and teach them who Jesus is. And so Johan stands there teaching them the gospel as he plays basketball with them and teaches them how to play basketball. These guys are doing real work. It's hard. It's not easy. I'm watching them continue to do the hard thing day after day, despite the circumstances that they have thrown against them, encouraged me to continue on. Much like the things I've seen when I go to Pakistan, and you can see some of the videos we've done there, but when you see the church put into hard times and they run to one another's aid and they care for one another and they push each other forward, that's when the gospel is most true. It's most visible and it's exemplified. I think I'll end by telling you about this particular moment in Uganda, where I went in the summer, and I'm actually on my way back there. Probably shortly after this video comes out, I'll be heading to Uganda after Christmas. And in Uganda, we have an orphanage that we've supported and I'm on the board of and we help care for. There's 50 kids there. These 50 kids are like nobody you've ever met. I've watched them come home from school and the other 30 kids that are still there come rushing over and greeting them and caring for one another, and they're playing games and they're hanging out and they're going through a pretty tragic life experience with one another, and they're joyful. This summer I got to spend some time in the back of a van with one of the kids. He's the oldest guy there. I want to tell you his story in greater depth. I'm going back there. I'm going to film his story and get to tell you more about Elijah, but I want to tell you the short version. I was in the back of the van with Elijah, and we were talking about how he ended up living at this children's home. And he told me that at the age of 10, both of his parents died. When both of his parents died, Joseph and Dada and Harriet and Gloria and the people running the orphanage there, they were able to, somehow they got in touch, and he came and he started staying at the children's home. And he said that over those next years, Joseph basically became his dad, and all the ladies, they call them aunties, became his moms. Joseph is the guy who runs the orphanage. He'd been like a father to Elijah, and he just pushed them and ensured that they must go to school, they must get good grades, they must work to have a future. And so Elijah has become almost a straight A student. This kid is super smart, 17 years old, getting to be in secondary school, which is their version of high school. Basically, he's getting opportunities that he told me no one in his village thought he would get this far. No one in his village thought he would succeed. And he said, when they see that I'm still in school, they're shocked. They're surprised. Well, Elijah was talking to our team, and he'd said something to this effect, because I know he wants to be a doctor. He has the desire to be a doctor, and he's working really hard to try and do that. I asked him, actually, why do you want to be a doctor? And he goes, well, because I don't want other kids whose parents have diseases to end up an orphan like me. That just ripped my heart out. In that moment, I thought, how can I stop now when I know Elijah by name, and I've spent time with him and I've heard his story. Later, Elijah told one of the other people on our team that he wants to be a doctor so that he can come back and help stand when the aunties can't stand anymore. He's exemplifying what the church is and making grand effort to care for those people around him. Even though he had gone through the most ridiculous, hard situation ever, he said, I will be one who stands in the gap for those who can't otherwise. After the crazy year we had and all of the difficulties and all of the things we went through, those things we've seen, Melania in Ukraine and the Dominican effort and Jordan and Jenny and all my friends out there doing the things they're doing and sharing the gospel with people, and then to end it with this last trip to Uganda and see these kids and the stories like that, there's no reason for us to stop. My family will continue to share the hope of the gospel. We'll continue going into the nations to be the church alongside these guys. And so I just wanted to give you this kind of pause at the end of the year. I stopped making videos a while back because I started focusing on talking to people and getting their stories and learning what we were going to continue to do, because we've really enjoyed making these videos and telling you stories about what God is doing around the world. We're going to continue that. That's the future of this channel. 12 months ago, I didn't think I'd be here, and yet here we are today, and we're going to keep going into the nations. Thanks for watching.